What is going on, Colts Nation, and welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Cody and Derek, back with another one, guys. And in today's episode, we are going to discuss the Indianapolis Colts with the most to prove here in the 2025 season. So a lot of different guys we could have talked about. We debated a few, but we settled on 5 guys that we are going to mention today. 2 on the offense, 3 on the defense here. So we're talking strictly players here. You could probably throw some coaches on here as well. But for the sake of this video, we're going to talk about players. So with that being said, Derek, I think when you talk about the first person probably that comes to mind as far as players go for the most to prove in 2025, you've got to go to the third-year quarterback, Anthony Richardson. I don't think there's any question marks, Derek. This is going to be a huge determining season on what happens for Anthony Richardson and his future with the Indianapolis Colts, first off, but also long-term. Like, this might be his best chance. And again, he's still a young guy, so he's probably going to get more opportunities if it doesn't work out here. But this is a big chance here for him to prove that he is a long-term piece here for the Colts at the quarterback position. And the first 2 years, whether it's been injuries, whether it's been poor play, or a combination of the two, it's been not great for AR through the first 2 years. There's been a lot of controversy, a lot of issues going on, on the field and off the field, as far as some questions on leadership, mental toughness, all that stuff. That's all been stuff that's been thrown around when it comes to AR. So he's going to have an opportunity here, Derek, to compete for that starting quarterback position. But honestly, man, he's not guaranteed that either. Right, Daniel Jones got brought in this offseason, and AR had another issue with, another thing, although it does look like he's going to be ready for the start of camp. But Daniel Jones isn't going away, and he's going to have to earn it, Anthony Richardson is, if he wants to be the starting quarterback in 2025. And frankly, Derek, if he doesn't win the starting role and he doesn't really see the field a ton this year, Colts are going to be looking for a new quarterback in 2026. I think it's pretty fairly certain on that. Even if Daniel Jones is a average to above average quarterback, I do think it would serve the Colts in the long term to try to find that guy if AR does not prove himself this year.
Yeah, Anthony Richardson definitely has the most pressure on him of anyone on this team, for obvious reasons, right? We have been saying it for, the last 6 months, that there's a likely chance that if Anthony Richardson doesn't improve, during this offseason and doesn't look to be a potential look into the future quarterback that we need Anthony Richardson to be, there could be very likely that they move on from Anthony Richardson after this year potentially, because you may be looking at a regime change if that were to end up being the case. So, yeah, Anthony Richardson, he was drafted here a few years ago to be the future, and so far has not even been close. And the Colts are just looking for a sign, for any sort of sign that says he is improving and will be the future. And if he's not, then a lot of things are going to change for sure.
No doubt. This is we've said it a lot of times this offseason, but it really is do or die for Anthony Richardson and his future this season with the Colts. It really hangs in the balance this year, depending on if he performs or not, and if he even wins the starting spot or not, and also if he stays healthy or not. There's a lot of things against him right now and a lot of questions. So he's got a lot to prove, no doubt about that. All right, let's move on to a guy that is going to be catching passes from these quarterbacks, and a guy we've talked about already in previous videos here in the last week or so. We've got to talk about A.D. Mitchell, because I think he has the opportunity to potentially be a really, really big X factor in this team. Like, I think the talent-wise, it's there for A.D. Mitchell to potentially break out here in year number 2, and he actually was in our video. Spoiler alert, he was in our video talking about some of the players that are poised to break out. So when it comes to A.D. Mitchell, though, this is kind of a big season for him. I know he's only in year 2, but year 1 wasn't very great for A.D. Mitchell in terms of, catches and some of those things. Now, the separation and all that, it was really good. But he's got to do the other part of, he can be open all he wants, but at the end of the day, he's got to actually catch these passes. And obviously, having a solid quarterback will help with that department. But he's gotta work on some things this year in order to take it to the next level here. And he's got a lot to prove here that he can be potentially a part of this offense moving forward.
Yeah, no doubt. When it comes to AD Mitchell, we have no doubts that the talent is there. It's just a matter of, can you put it all together, and can you basically just put together the simplest of plays? It's mainly it. The drops issue is something that, has already had a lot of people start to question whether or not AD Mitchell is going to be a future great at wide receiver or not. There were a few times, we saw him make what you call business decisions, as you would say, in the NFL world, where you're like, oh, like, I'm gonna go ahead and not catch this because I see where this ball is putting me towards, and it's in a dangerous position and whatnot. But yeah, it really will come down to the quarterbacks too. There were a lot of times last year, Cody, where we said that, AD Mitchell, even in that first game of the season, we looked back, or even we were at that game. We watched it and we saw Anthony Richardson overthrow AD Mitchell on 3 touchdown passes. There were 3 touchdown passes for AD Mitchell easily if the quarterback hits him on all 3 of those routes. And that felt like a lot of last year. And I mean, obviously, AD Mitchell didn't live up to the expectation. Neither did the quarterback play. That didn't really help much either. But if he can get those drops figured out, and we already know he can create separation with the best of them, if he just does that, then, AD Mitchell definitely will have a great season. But a lot of people are very down on AD Mitchell right now, and hope that he can, prove some of those people wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a ton to prove this year, no doubt about that. He can do that. I mean, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think it takes this wide receiver room to a next level if he indeed can live up to those hype that a lot of people had for him pre-draft. So we'll see. All right, let's switch over to the defense now and talk about a few different guys on this group. I think a player that Derek, I want to change this up a little bit, but I think a player that was kind of, if Anthony Richardson was the offensive controversy last year, this other guy, Zaire Franklin, had a lot of controversy come his way in 2025 as well. I mean, this was a captain just like AR, and a guy that we already know. There was a lot of controversy from some of the things that were said preseason, some of the stuff that was, happening in the middle of the season. There was a lot going on. And, obviously the defense was very poor in 2025 or in 2024. There was a lot of issues, but you look at what your captain did, and there was a lot of stuff going on for Zaire Franklin, off the field and on the field, in terms of missed tackles, blown coverages, just almost this lack of accountability on the defensive side of the ball in certain ways, and just some pettiness that, kind of ran over through the season, and some beef with, former player Pat McAfee. There was all this stuff going on. There was all this drama. Meanwhile, the Colts defense was routinely playing very, very poor. And at the, core of it, really, your defensive captain was doing that stuff that he shouldn't have done. Now, to his credit, he has come out and said, I was wrong for some of that stuff. So I can respect that, no doubt. But he's got a lot to prove here, Derek, in 2025, because let's face it, like, this is a new scheme. Lou Anarumo, new guy in here. He's choosing to, roll with Zaire for this year. And we'll have to see moving forward. Is Zaire the type of player that Lou wants in his defense? And, we saw them do a complete overhaul of the secondary this year. Who's to say next year, if, Lou Anarumo's still here, they don't do that with linebacker? I mean, who knows at this point? So all that to say, there was a lot of crap that happened for Zaire Franklin a year ago, and he's got a lot to prove here in 2025 to prove that he belongs here in this defense in the long term.
Yeah, definitely a shocker of a defense last year, and it was not for any of the right reasons. It was a disaster of every proportion, right? Injuries happened on the defensive line early. A few guys even in the secondary. One guy who, we're going to actually talk about in this list as well. Injuries happened early, and the defense just seemed to never recover, even when they got their full strength back. just always felt like the defense just was never in tune. And a lot of that was, because of Zaire Franklin. He is the leader out there. He's the guy in the middle. He's the guy that's helping to put people in rotations. This is the guy that's the brains of the operation on the defense. And, again, we see the tackle numbers that he puts up. And I mean, obviously, kudos to him for continuing to put up those kinds of numbers. But again, he also is leading the NFL in missed tackles too. So you can accept that he did his part in one way, but he also messed up in a lot of ways last year too. That's just not something that can be tolerated. That's just something that needs to be better. And who knows why he had that missed tackle problem? Was it effort? I don't think it really was. Was it, other things on the outside happening where, his brain wasn't fully focused on the game itself? That might actually be. Was the defense just so bad that it put Zaire in bad situations? That probably also happened too. There's a lot of different reasons for that. But you're right. Obviously, Zaire Franklin, we know, is going to continue to put up the tackle numbers. We obviously know this. But we want him to continue to be a guy that can force turnovers. We want to see him, be more active in the pass game. We want to see him be more present at times in this defensive game plan and make a bigger impact than just getting tackles. Because obviously we know he can get tackles. He's made it very clear to fans, hey, look at my tackle numbers. Like, obviously we know he knows what he's doing about it, but we need more than just tackles. We need you to actually do something to impact the defense more than just boasting about your 12 tackles that you get a game.
Right. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if they're, 5 to 7 yards down the field, it's like, okay, what's the impact truly of getting a bunch of tackles? Like, that's cool, but yeah, I mean, what matters more is how the defense in general is playing. Like, the team stuff matters more than the individual stuff. So hopefully here in 2025, he had a wake-up call last year, and him and, obviously the new scheme with Lou Anarumo and all these new guys here on this defensive coaching staff, hopefully they can nip some of that in the bud a little bit. And, this year will be a whole lot different from an accountability and performance standpoint for Zaire and a lot of guys on this defense. So we'll have to see. And, talking about another guy there in that front seven that I thought, Derek, he played just fine for a rookie, but I do think there is another level that he can go to, Laiatu Latu. I mean, 4 sacks, Derek. It's solid, nothing crazy here in year number 1. The pressure numbers were pretty good for him overall, but you'd like to see a guy that you took as the first defensive player in the class take a big year leap here in year number 2. And Laiatu Latu has the opportunity here, like we said, with this new scheme, a lot of new guys here on this defensive staff, and, an opportunity here for Latu with, the loss of Dio Dengbo in free agency. It opens up even potentially more playing time for a player like Latu here in year number 2. And frankly, Derek, for a guy that you took as early as you did, and especially, like I said, the first defensive player taken, when you had anybody you could have chosen in this draft, you need Latu to break out. You need him to be the leading man at the edge. Like, he needs to do that. And if not, I mean, sad to say, but it might be another thing where we've seen Chris Ballard take swings on defensive linemen and it hasn't worked out. Now, again, it's way too early to say any of that, but all that to say, Latu has to have a big year. You need to see it from him, especially considering where you drafted him with all the options you had on the table at that point.
Yeah, no doubt. You want to see those numbers translate into something better. Of course, as we just said with Zaire Franklin, you kind of want to see more of an impact from Laiatu Latu. And you're right. When you took him, you said we got the best player in the draft, you said. And, the first season he's there didn't really make that much of an impact. Outside of maybe the Chicago game, you didn't really feel Laiatu Latu's presence at all last season. And, of course, the whole defense, that was an issue. You hope, and we said it in a video recently, with the secondary having so many new changes to it now, where you have more all pros out there now, you certainly hope that will allow guys like Laiatu Latu to have more of an impact on some plays. A guy that, gets consistent pressure on the quarterback, but just isn't quite there at getting the full sack. And you certainly hope that with the secondary, that is going to improve it. But, again, Ballard does not have a good track record with picking defensive ends. So, we need somebody to step up. We need somebody to do something. And Laiatu Latu, again, people are questioning whether or not, Laiatu Latu is just going to end up being another bust, that Chris Ballard swung and miss on, So hopefully we see Laiatu Latu take a big step this year, because a lot of people definitely are not super high on Latu at the moment.
Yeah, he's got a big role to fill here potentially in year 2. All right. Last guy we'll talk about, you mentioned it briefly a little bit ago when mentioning, I think it was Zaire Franklin, that the injury guy on the defense, unfortunately, has been Juju Brents. I mean, first year, Derek kind of set the tone. I mean, when you drafted him, he was already recovering from an injury. He was recovering from wrist surgery, and it seems like ever since he was drafted, it's been one injury after another. It's been something going on, whether it's the wrist, whether it's, something else. There's just so many things that it feels like he's just dealt with in his first 2 years. And even when he came back at the end of the year, he got injured again. So it's like, man, there's just a lot of untapped potential there with Juju Brents because he has not been on the field. And unfortunately, Derek, I feel like that's been a trend with a lot of the Colts' recent draft picks that they've taken high, especially in 2023. It's like there's these guys with all the talent in the world, but the problem is they just haven't been able to stay on the field at all. There's been so many injuries upon injuries with some of these guys. It's just been crazy. So if you're the Indianapolis Colts, you need, or if you're Juju Brents, I should say, probably more than the Colts, you need to prove that you belong on this team. You need to prove that you can stay healthy. Because don't look now, Derek, but Juju Brents isn't guaranteed a starting spot this year. Not by a long shot. He's going to have to really compete and play his butt off to win a starting corner spot, because Javarius Ward's now, number one outside corner. And Jalen Jones, while Juju Brents has been injured, Jalen Jones has been quietly improving every single year as cornerback 2 now. So there is a real chance that Juju Brents does not see the field a ton this year. I mean, there's a real good chance of that. And he, obviously, we know, Derek, we've seen when he's been on the field, he showed promise. I mean, he's had multiple games his rookie season where I thought he played pretty well, all things considered. I mean, he had that huge punch out in that Baltimore game. He had some big moments in, certain games in 2023 where you're like, okay, like we can work with this kid. Like he can be a potential really good corner for us. And then the injury bug happened again. He played one game in 2024 before going down with the injury, came back near the end of the year, got injured again. It's like, you just kind of threw your hands up in the air and you say, we just can't rely on this kid. Like, we want to rely on him. We want him to be one of those guys. But the reality is he's been made out of glass the first 2 years of his career. So hopefully now, year 3, with, less pressure on him to be that number one outside corner, he's going to have a chance here to compete, Derek. But he's got a lot to prove here, just like Anthony Richardson. The first and second round picks in 2023, both guys, they've missed more time than they've played. And it's been a lot of issues with both these guys. So can Juju Brents in year 3 finally stay healthy and let the talent shine through? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Juju, I mean, again, I said it before. I felt like I have all the confidence in the world in Juju Brents' talent. The problem is the availability aspect, and that's going to be the ultimate factor here. And everyone keeps saying, like, you can't trust the guy right now. And that's unfortunate to say, but it's true. Like, people are at that point where you just don't expect anything of Juju Brents right now. And if he does do something, then you're like, oh, yay, that's great. Awesome. Love it. because you have that low of expectations that he's even going to be around. So, that's hard to imagine that it goes from being drafted in the second round to then all of a sudden, you're just now you might be cornerback 4 or 5 on the roster right now. So, like, Juju, freaking stay healthy, man. Fix your body, do something, take better care of yourself. Because if you could just stay healthy, bro, you're going to be fine. But you just got to stay healthy first and foremost.
Absolutely. Well, guys, that does it here for our video and our topics here, talking about the 5 players that we truly believe, Derek, they have a lot to prove. They have the most to prove here in 2025. Let us know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Is there anybody else maybe you would throw on this list as well that we didn't mention? Let us know all those things, guys. But that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, all that good stuff. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.